Thank you all for being here, and what a privilege it is for me to moderate and even interview Ambassador Friedman. And there has never been an ambassador from the United States to Israel that is so pro-Israel, so pro-Bible than Ambassador David Friedman. I remember being at the White House for 20 years, and especially my last 4 years when Donald Trump was there. And I say this to many audiences around the world. No president did more for Israel combined of all our previous presidents than Donald Trump. I can go on and on. Moving the embassy from Jerusalem, out of the Iran nuke deal, sovereignty over the Golan Heights, standing up against the International Court of Justice, stopping funding UNRWA, one thing after another. I could go on and on. But the person behind those bold moves by President Trump was Ambassador David Friedman. So I was just visiting with Ambassador Friedman and asking him about the unique title of the book, One Jewish State. And his insight and the way that it was picked was very, very interesting. Can you share that with us, Ambassador Friedman?
Well, I'm not a branding expert, and when I started to write the book, my kids said to me that in the modern age you have somewhere between 5 and 10 seconds to get people's attention. So I spent almost as much time thinking about the title as I did writing the book, because they said it's so important. So I thought One Jewish State is an important title, and it means a lot more just than the 3 words. The one, if you will, is there's only one Jewish state. It's the size of New Jersey. There's 40 Muslim states. There's 30 Christian, Buddhist, Hindu states. Lots of countries have national religions. America doesn't, but lots of countries do. And yet the world is obsessed about the fact that one Jewish state, one state, the size of New Jersey, living on land as to which the Jewish people have the best claim to title than any other country anywhere in the world to their land. Yet there's so much obsession about one Jewish state. That's the one, the Jewish. It's not just a state, it's a Jewish state. And what makes it a Jewish state? The places, the Jewish history, the majesty, the incredible places that bring the Bible back to life. Shiloh, Hebron, Beit El, Jerusalem, Beit Lechem, Kever Rachel, Hebron. All these places, right? That's what makes us Jewish. You can't be a Jewish state without sovereignty over the places that make you Jewish. And then there's the fact that it's a state. It's not just a place. Palestine was never a state, never a country. Israel is a state. It's a country. It has sovereignty. It's got a powerful army. But with that sovereignty comes a privilege and a responsibility to make sure that Israel remains forever the one and only Jewish state. So that's how the name had the brand. The brand I had nothing to do with. My son-in-law is very good at this stuff. He created the actual trademark, but that's the thinking behind it.
It's an excellent one, and I think also the movie you did about Highway 60 is another blessing. All the biblical sites through Samaria, down to Judea. It's overwhelming. The amount of biblical sites that are on Highway 60, and you brought that to the public's attention, where a lot of people that go to church had no idea. When we're talking about the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, it's the biblical heartland of Israel, which you documented.
Well, by the way, what was amazing to me is that even people that I knew since I was a kid, who went to yeshiva with me, got pretty good Jewish educations. They watched the movie. They said to me, we didn't know half the stuff either. It's a shame. It's a shame. We don't know enough. None of us, including myself, we don't know enough about our legacy, our history, about our values, and I wrote the book, so hopefully we can start learning more about it.
Ambassador Friedman also discusses the possibility of Palestinians receiving citizenship, but not being able to vote in the elections. This is a big deal. But at the same time, when you look at a lot of the problems in the Knesset, that can be from people that are enemies of Israel, not supporters of Israel.
Well, look, I think that one of the things that Israel does not take enough credit for and deserves more credit for is the fact that not only does it empower its Arab minority, but it empowers them to a level where they have the best standard of living in the Middle East. Right now, this is 20% of the Israeli population. If you look at the elite universities in Israel, and you know this, right? You look at the elite universities in Israel, Haifa University, Tel Aviv, Hebrew University. The Arabs are 20% of the population. More than 20% of the students at these elite universities are Arab citizens of Israel. Israel has the power. It should take great pride in how it empowers its Arab minority. By the way, and just by way of comparison, you know, go back to 1941 when the United States was attacked by the Japanese in Pearl Harbor. Right, that was 3,000 miles off the coast of San Francisco. Right, I mean, America did not have enemies on any of its shores, and the American government was afraid. And what did it do? It took everybody in the country who looked Japanese and put them in an internment camp. Very dark day in our history. Israel has not had a day of peace since 1948. It is at war with Arabs in every direction. Not a single Arab citizen has ever been isolated or put in an internment camp. Never. They're treated just like everyone else. If any country has the right to be suspicious and nervous and take actions against its Arab minority, it would be Israel, but they don't. They don't. And that's the whole message about the one Jewish state. Israel is the only country with the skill, the ability, the will to take the Arab population in Judea and Samaria and to de-radicalize it by bringing them up to the same standard of living as inside Israel itself.
There's three areas. There's Area A, there's Area B, there's Area C. One of Ambassador Friedman's recent interviews said A and B have been given to the Palestinians, but there's some security oversight. But the Area C is the one that's very, very contentious. But that's, you know, former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and others know the importance of Area C. And Ambassador Friedman is talking about the importance of that Area C being fully part of the one Jewish state.
Well, and A and B. I mean, and listen, look, we have to stop committing national suicide. We just have to. I mean, God gave us this. God gave this enormous gift, 2,000 years of praying, 2,000 years of unfulfilled prophecies by Ezekiel, by Isaiah, by Jeremiah, by Moses. We finally got this incredible gift. And look, nothing is worth the cost of October 7th, but it happened. October 7th happened. And to me, I hope it is the last time we ever have to ask ourselves, why are we continuing to try to give away the land God has given to us? And look, I suspect I can make that case in this room on a theological basis, which of course I could. But just look at it. If you know, not everybody thinks the way that we do. Look at Gaza, right? We tried this experiment 18 years ago. Gaza was evacuated. It became, you know, Judenrein. Not a Jew was allowed to live there. Not a single soldier had his boots on the ground there until after October 7th. What did they do when they got Gaza, which has this beautiful western-facing beachfront on the Mediterranean? What did they do? They got billions of dollars from America, unfortunately, for every administration other than the Trump administration. They got money from the UN, from the World Bank. What did they do with the money? Did they build hospitals? Did they build schools? Did they build, you know, roads and highways? Did they create business? They created the most heinous terror state in the world. We're going to do this all over again. And on the other side, in Judea and Samaria, in areas A and B governed by the Palestinian Authority, they have a pension system where they incentivize people to kill Jews. If you kill a Jew, you get a higher pension. If you kill two Jews, you get an even higher pension. If you're killed in the act of killing a Jew, your family gets paid. I mean, how many times do we need to be, you know, kicked in the head to know that we can't do that? And of course, the cherry on top, this is what, you know, my friend Mike Pompeo said in the foreword to my book. Why should we be surprised? Why should we be surprised that fulfilling God's will actually yields the best outcome to all the inhabitants of the area? Right? Shouldn't be a surprise.
So Another great purpose of the one Jewish state is 80% of American, or 80% of the Jewish community, are Reform and conservative, and they don't stand for the biblical right that Israel has to the land. And the evangelical church, which is 35% of the church, fully follows the scriptures from Genesis to Revelation and understands the biblical right that Israel has to all of this land. So part of the challenge, we have 65% of the church in America, that's 100 million church attendees, that go to replacement theology churches that have no understanding of the biblical significance of the state of Israel, are 1 billion worldwide. So this is another very important aspect of this, is take the biblical right of the one Jewish state to the international community. That's
Look, I'm going to tell you, and look, I'm not giving up on anybody. I'm not. I mean, I'm disappointed beyond words in some of my fellow co-religionists, but I'm not giving up on them, because I think understand, one Jewish state is a thesis that can appeal to you whether you're religious or secular, whether you're Jewish or Christian, whether you're pro-Israel or whether you're pro-Palestinian. However you digest the news and develop your own points of view, this is the right outcome. It's the right outcome for everyone. So we're not going to give up. We're going to take this case, wherever it goes. It is the only solution. Now, right now, unfortunately, if you talk about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the only thing on the table anywhere, by the way, it's true of people in the Republican Party as well, but certainly in the Democratic Party, it's the two-state solution. Over and over and over again, there's this idea that we need to create a Palestinian state, God forbid, in the land given to the Jewish people by God, and in the land that would create a platform for the destruction of Israel. So we can't do it, but that's the only thing on the table. This has to, the whole point of this book, I tell people, buy it or borrow it. I don't care. I don't care about selling the books. I just want people to read it. We need for people to become fluent in the narrative that there's an alternative to the two-state solution, and that alternative is the best thing for the Palestinians, it's the best thing for the Israelis, and it's the word of God at work. And we need to become more fluent in that.
In the timing, as usual, God's timing is perfect. And the reason for this perfect timing, we did, as I shared with Ambassador Friedman in Jerusalem, we did an event July 3rd and 4th called The Trial in The Hague. And it was 2 days of showing Israel's legal right to the land, according to the San Remo Agreement, which Secretary of State Pompeo said after a year of study at the State Department that Israel's not an illegal occupier. They are legally occupying land that was given to them in the San Remo Agreement in 1922. So that's critical. And also the biblical and the consequential, which I write about in Eye to Eye, but the biblical and the consequential, and Ambassador Friedman really emphasized that. So what's happened 2 weeks after we did the trial, the International Court of Justice came forward with their advisory saying that Israel is an illegal occupier and that there should be reparation to the Palestinians for these 50-some years of occupying Palestinian land. So we're talking about Ambassador Friedman's book being very, very important at a very divinely important time, because right now Abbas is coming to New York City to call on the UN to evict 500,000 Jewish people from Judea and Samaria and to go along. Even the International Court of Justice opinion was an advisory. It's not binding. But then you also saw the International Court of Justice who wanted to take Prime Minister Netanyahu and Gallant, the defense minister, to the court, as well as members of Hamas. So again, I can't emphasize the incredible timing of your book, Ambassador Friedman. It's so important now to fully understand so we can share with Jews and Christians the biblical significance of the day we live in.
Look, all you need to do is read Mark Twain. Mark Twain is not a political analyst. Mark Twain is, maybe the greatest author in American history. Mark Twain, visited the land of Israel, and he wrote in The Innocents Abroad. He described what it was. It was desolate. It was, the idea of reparations. I mean, the only thing that the Jewish people have done in the land of Israel is made it bloom. at a time when it was desolate. I mean, at the expense of malaria, at the expense of their own lives. Reparations. I mean, if the reparations should be paid, it should be paid by the Palestinians who have inflicted so much harm and damage upon the Jewish people. I want to tell you one thing. This, I think this is really revealing. Do you know who? I don't know how many people here know who Rashi was. Rashi's name is. It's an acronym. He was the greatest biblical commentator in history, and he asks a very important question. He says, "Why do we begin the Bible with the words, with the story of creation? So what? Like the creation, the story of Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. Why not, the Jewish people, we fulfill commandments. We have 613 commandments. The first commandment doesn't begin until the book of Exodus. So, and this is someone who lived over 1,000 years ago. And he said, why do we begin with the book of creation? And he says, because the nations of the world are going to claim that the Jewish people have stolen the land of Israel. This is 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years ago he said this. The nations of the world will claim that the Jewish people have stolen the land of Israel. And the book of creation, the book of Genesis, is the title insurance of the Jewish people. That God created the world. He had the right to give any part of the world to whoever he wanted. And he gave this little piece of land, this tiny piece of land, to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob in the book of Genesis. That's the only reason why we have the book of Genesis, to confirm the title of the Jewish people to the land of Israel. This was 1,000 years ago. Nothing has changed in 1,000 years.
Absolutely. The biblical right that Israel has to the land, Genesis 15:18. And also for those that say, well, look, the United Nations created Israel, or gave them an opportunity to be a state. And we know our American President Harry Truman came forward so courageously and fully backed Israel as a state. But as Secretary of State Pompeo, during the Trump administration, Ambassador Friedman emphasized the fact that the San Remo Agreement, this is important when people say, well, look, the land was given by the UN to Israel. Well, the San Remo Agreement was put in place in 1922 by the League of Nations. When they merged with the UN was supposed to fulfill all previous resolutions. And they didn't. And they started taking land away and land away and land away. I did a PowerPoint on this from San Remo to the present. And when the International Court of Justice just came out and said that Israel's an illegal occupier of Palestinian land, that's totally false. They're in violation of their own covenant agreement with the League of Nations.
Look at it like this, San Remo gave Palestine, the area of Palestine, which by the way had no borders until that agreement, because there was no need to have any borders because it wasn't a country. So the borders were created as part of the San Remo Agreement, and it included the Kingdom of Jordan at the time, and that's 72% of Palestine. The British peeled that off. 72% of Palestine, gave it to Jordan. Now, Jordan, to this day, more than 60% of Jordanians are Palestinians, right? And they live under the autocratic rule of a Hashemite king. They don't vote. They have a lousy economy. It's a failed state. Does anybody care that a country that is 60% Palestinian is brutalized by a Hashemite minority? No. As they say, no Jews, no news. It's only if the Jews are somehow involved. So look, I think Bill, we have to get this. When Joshua brought the Jewish people across into the land of Israel, right? God said, I am now removing from you the shame of Egypt, right? The slave mentality. You're now on your own, okay? And that was 3,000 plus years ago, and we still haven't fully removed the shame of Egypt. We're still making excuses. We're still trying to prove that we have the right to exist. As if anybody else in the world has the right to exist. We take great comfort when someone says Israel has the right to defend itself. What country in the world doesn't have the right to defend itself when it's attacked? We are selling ourselves far too cheaply. Okay, and it's that we kind of got that in Egypt, and we were still trying to get that off of us, but now's the time. I mean, if we haven't learned anything for October 7th, that is what we need to learn, that the Jewish people have to stand for themselves, by themselves, with our great friends in the evangelical Christian community, and build the Jewish state as a Jewish state once and for all.
Amen.
Ambassador Friedman, in our final 5 minutes, just a couple of quick thoughts. One, what do you think is going to happen here at the UN? I mean, that's difficult to predict at times. And then what the end result of what you would like to see your book accomplish?
Nothing good ever comes from the UN, so I expect my advice to, as a former bankruptcy lawyer, I can tell you that my advice to President Trump would be put the UN into Chapter 11 for a couple of years. Try to reorganize it, and then if you fail, put it to Chapter 7 and just liquidate it. That would be my look, one Jewish state is not. Here's what this has to be. Okay, we have to do this right, which means we have to respect. First of all, the most important thing is what does Israel think? I went to President Trump tomorrow and said, I think the United States should recognize Israeli sovereignty over Judea and Samaria. The first thing he said to me is, well, what does Israel want to do? Right? So the first question is, what does Israel want to do? And I think we learned a few lessons from the past. I believe, and this, not everybody will agree with me, but I believe we have to go out, and I think this sells itself. This whole story sells itself, this plan sells itself if it's delivered with love and respect and appreciation to everybody who is risking their life in the state of Israel, even if they don't agree with us right away. I've had so many conversations, I talk about it in my book, about people who were completely secular, had no interest in Judea and Samaria. When they learned a little bit about the majesty, the biblical majesty of it, they started to change their minds. So we need to change the trajectory. It's not about tomorrow. It's not about getting, a 61-seat majority in the Knesset and ramming it through. It's about doing it, developing a national conversation and a national consensus in Israel. At the same time, working that same approach in America. So we get to a point in a year or two, however long it takes, where the two countries can get together and ultimately fulfill God's will. It's not a race. It's not a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's got to get done right. I think we only have one chance to do this. We have to do it right. But if we do it right, again, with love and respect for everybody, we'll convince them. We will make the case. Again, there's no other alternative, and this is God's will. We will make the case for Jewish sovereignty over Judea and Samaria, given enough time and given the opportunity, and given enough of a groundswell of support. So for everybody here and all your friends and their friends, if they read the book and understand and develop a sense of fluency in this area, we'll get there. We will absolutely get to the promised land.
Once again, thank you, Ambassador Friedman, and what a blessing you've been to the state of Israel, and also an honor to our country to send such an incredible ambassador to Israel to represent us as well. Thank you.